Good evening. I'm Mary Husong Callan, President of the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metro area. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We influence public policy through education and advocacy, and we focus significant effort on registering new voters and encouraging them to get out and vote. If you're not registered to vote, or if you've moved since the last election, please stop at our table and we'll take care of that. By the way, the League of Women Voters is not for women only. Men are most welcome to join us in making democracy work. On behalf of all the members of the Rochester League, I'd like to welcome you to this forum, asking the question, can Monroe County reduce poverty by 50% in 15 years? We're proud to present this important discussion, and we're especially pleased to be able to offer a question and answer segment following the presentations. We request, of course, that all of our guests respect our panel, our hosts here at Asbury First United Methodist Church, and our League's own commitment to civil and respectful discourse. Please join me in welcoming the chairperson of the League's Poverty Committee and the coordinator of this forum, Georgia DiGregorio.
Why did I doubt that a tornado would keep you home? Really? So welcome to all of you. Many of our Monroe community was shocked back in December 2013 when Ed Doherty of the ACT Rochester presented us with a report that told us about the dire statistics about poverty level in Rochester. Mr. Doherty added when he made this presentation, we need to create an understanding that poverty is a problem for all, not just the poor. We know that poverty eats away at the foundations of a healthy community. By community, we mean not just Rochester, but also all of the area, including Monroe County and surrounding suburbs. Did you know that in Rochester itself, over 66,000 people are living in poverty? Outside of Rochester, 95,000 people are living in poverty, a third more. We depend on each other for a healthy community, both economically, culturally, in education, and in diversity. When part of us is suffering, we are all hurting. Arlene Thaler, a local photographer, has generously provided us with photos that you see around the edge of the room. They remind us that we're talking about human beings, not just statistics. The League has supported programs and policies to prevent or reduce poverty and to promote self-sufficiency for individuals and families since the 70s. So it was only natural for our local league to begin to follow the steps that were being taken by our MAPI, which is Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative. We'll get used to that term. And that coalition of groups. We interviewed many participants and read a lot of documents, but we still felt, as probably many of you, that we needed more answers. So tonight, we have a panel of 4 panelists who have committed to the goal of reducing poverty in Monroe County by 50% in 15 years. They will share the first steps that are being taken to achieve this goal, and they will also give us a hint of what we can look for in the near future. Again, the reason for this forum is to bring community members together for a better understanding, not only of the problem, and I think we've got that point, but also the pieces of remediation that fit together, and most importantly, ways that we as members of the community can support their efforts. Before I introduce the panelists, let me just review the handouts that we definitely want you to take home with you. There's a lot of stuff about the League of Women Voters over there, and that's important too, but things that relate particularly to this program. One is an agenda. Now, it gives the questions that we've already put out in our flyers and everything else that we would like to address this evening, and the names of the panelists. Secondly, there's an evaluation form, and I've been told they ran out of evaluation forms. So please take your agenda and write on the back at the end of the evening any comments that you have, and most especially tell us how you heard about this forum, because that's important for us to know how to communicate with everyone. Secondly, or thirdly, at this point, there is a community report card that ACT Rochester keeps up year after year. This is 2017. At the bottom of it is the website address, and you can go and see what it is specifically for Monroe County. And lastly, we have Connected Communities information that not only tells you about the guiding principles, etc., but also gives you an idea of the map of the area that is that they're working with, as well as a booklet that explains what Connected Communities do in the Emma and Beechwood area. Okay, now that I've covered up my agenda, here we go. The panelists are going to be talking for about 10 minutes each. And so please use your paper, write your questions down as they arise in your thought. And that way at the end, we will then go across the room and have you ask your questions. There's Tori Tolliver Powers. Tori, you raise your hand. She's with RMAPI, and that's located at United Way. There's LaShonda Leslie Smith, who is with Connected Communities. Henry Fitz, which is in the Mayor's Office of Innovation and Strategic Initiatives, and Vincent Esposito, who I didn't get to say hello to when you came in. Thank you. And he's with Empire State Development. So at that point, I think I will turn it over to Tori, and I think Tori and LaShonda, you're doing a work together, or?
LaShonda will go after me.
Okay, great. Thank you. Get my stuff.
So do I just? Okay. Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. Awesome. My name is Tori Tolliver Powers. I am the Community Engagement Specialist with the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, also known as RMAPI. Dr. Brock could not be here with us on this evening, but he sends his regards. At this time, I'm just going to give an overview of who we are, what we do, and what we're in the process of implementing. So as Georgia mentioned, please write your questions down, and we will attempt to address those at the end of our presentations. So RMAPI is a convener. RMAPI is creating a new philosophy and practices to bring about systematic, sustainable change. Unlike other initiatives, we are community informed. We have voice and input of involvement of people who are living in poverty, and who we have had over 400 institutions involved from the beginning, and more than 1,000, community persons engaged to date. We're really about shared goals and being intentional and deliberate, and really demonstrating those practices across our stakeholders. We are not a service provider, a funder, a competitor, nor a program. We do not administrate funds, nor do we compete for funding. We are really about systems change. We are about a collaborative effort. We are not focused on programs. Programs do not solve poverty, as many have said. It's many stakeholders that have said we are program rich, systems poor, which result in poor outcomes. So again, we're about aligning priorities, aligning services, and aligning funding sources. So just look at this infographic we have here. Our MAPI, just look at, picture our MAPI as the power strip. And the partners are plugging into the power strip, which allows our MAPI to align collaborative efforts, the community priorities, shared goals, and the guiding principles. And how many have heard of the guiding principles for our MAPI? Good to know. Can someone tell me what one of the guiding principles is? Yes?
Considering racial disparity when you are adopting policies and programs.
Correct, also known as structural racism. So the three founding, principles are structural racism, trauma, and community building. Structural racism is policies and practices that promote racial inequity. Trauma is about mental, physical, and emotional health issues resulting from the concentration of poverty. Community building is about incorporating resources and jobs available within the community. Again, we need to address all of these items collectively to have a person-centered approach. And as you can see, Pathways to Prosperity, our MAPI, the Mayor's Office of Innovation, which is Henry's department, Rock the Future, Connected Communities, which is LaShonda, and Pathways to Prosperity is an arm, an extension for the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council. So that's a long one for me. So really about aligning what we want to see to come out for these people. We really want to take a person-centered approach. So we are working hand in glove together. So we are connected. And we are really about infusing the guiding principles. And as you know, the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council was really instrumental in our MAPI working hand in glove to incorporate the guiding principles into the funding application process for those seeking state funding. The council created a poverty impact statement that filtered in when people had to complete their applications to define how they would propose projects that align with the guiding principles as of structural racism, trauma, and community building. So again, it's giving an example of collectively addressing barriers, shifting community values, and incorporating those principles. Go on to the next one. The brewery applied for funding, and with that funding, the Economic Development Council wanted to know what the brewery was going to do in response to the poverty impact statement. And the brewery promised they're going to hire 124 people. And out of that 124, 68 people will be people that are impacted by poverty. So that was a win for our MAPI. Also, we have the Market-Driven Community Corporation, which is led by the City of Rochester. This program aims to create a network of community-based, employee-owned businesses that provide employment for individuals facing most significant barriers. This is an example of community building. We also have Kiva Rochester, which Henry will touch on. And Kiva Rochester is a program that follows a recommendation that our MAPI submitted. It's part of the 33 recommendations, and one of the recommendations was the Workforce Development Work Group. We also have the Adult Mentoring Program, which is another recommendation of our MAPI, which supports the Job and Workforce Development Work Group. And adult mentoring is to address the need for adult mentoring services for those living in poverty, below the poverty level, seeking to achieve economic self-sufficiency. The program connects these individuals with professional mentors, and there's also a model of peer-to-peer mentors who will help identify social economic needs and develop a specialized plan of goals and actions to reach that point. The program is being rolled out in 3 neighborhoods and part of a particular neighborhood, and the 3 neighborhoods widely are Market View Heights, Emma and Beechwood, and a part of Colnea. The adult mentoring implementation strategy is also known as Bridges to Success. So if you hear Bridges to Success, that is also what the adult mentoring program is. Nope, go back one.
Okay.
So I mentioned the first implementation strategy of adult mentoring. The next one will be early childhood supports. We're in the process of submitting a proposal to the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council. So we're in the process of working that out. So you'll be hearing more about that. And then systems design. Please note, these are all pilots. These are pilots and that are being tested for best practices that will be shared throughout the county. And that's why we're starting in a subset of the city, because we don't want to go too big. We want to start small because we want to do it right. It took us a long time to get here, so we can't achieve and have everybody move out of poverty overnight. So that's why we have a long and lengthy goal. And again, as I mentioned, we didn't get out here overnight, but we want to make sure we do it right. In order for us to do it right, our MAPI recognized that we needed the CAC. The CAC is not only serving our MAPI, CAC members also advise partners and work such as the MDCC. The CAC is the Community Advisory Council, and it really helps, you can go to the next slide, I'm sorry. It helps connect grassroots to treetops so that voices are heard and priorities are communicated. So again, we really want to get this right. We don't want to go fast and furious. How many know there's 9 Fast and Furious? We want to go slow because we want to do it right. So again, the Community Advisory is a group of community members throughout the county. It's not just particularly Emma, Beechwood, or Cornea. It's members from across the county. We have 15 members now, and it's really contributing to decisions and actions. And it, as I mentioned, it includes citizens across the region. And as I have pointed out, you go to the next slide. As I have pointed out, our MAPI is really about partnerships. And I'm closing with this infographic again and passing the baton to my colleague and partner, LaShonda. And prior to LaShonda coming up, our website is endingpovertynow.org.
So I wonder, do I need that microphone?
Yes, I do. They're on, sorry. I'm usually loud enough. Trust me, I've been told. When I was in 4th grade, my 4th grade teacher put me into oratorical contests because he wanted to use my gift for good and not evil. So if we can go to the next slide. As mentioned, I'm LaShonda Leslie Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Connected Communities, which is a relatively new nonprofit. We are a 501c3 located in the Beechwood and Emmett neighborhoods. As Tori had pointed out, we are a part of this collective impact process team, if you will. And so it's not just one entity. I think that's one of the things that we want to drive home with all of you guys this evening, that there isn't one initiative, there are multiple initiatives that are operating in the same space for the purpose of working very collaboratively together to ensure that we are really hitting this problem head on and making sure that we're having a long-term impact. Tori had mentioned a little bit earlier that this city has been said that it is resource rich and results poor. Well, it's about time we start really focusing in. And so what we found is that there are numerous organizations that are doing really good work in their own silos, but working collaboratively across communications and really creating these systems to ensure that people do not fall through the cracks. We've not done a really good job at that. And Rochester has quite a rich history, and we want to be able to ensure that everyone can take advantage of those kinds of opportunities. So we've been very intentional
around this circle, and even all of the organizations and initiatives that are supporting this are not really represented on this flyer, but I want you guys to really understand that this is a collective impact process, and those kinds of things do not, as Tori mentioned, take place overnight. It is a long-term, very intentional process, so much so that many of us meet bi-weekly for 2 hours at a time, just making sure that we're updated on each of the programs or systems that we're implementing to make sure that they work for one another. We can go to the next slide. So I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. I was wondering about that as well. So we're what we might consider a community quarterback. Very much like our mapping, we are a convener, a connector, a resource finder. We are not a service provider. If we go to the next slide. We're not a service provider, and we're not an extension of any one neighborhood association. Though we are located in the Emma neighborhood and we work on behalf of Emma and Beechwood, and if you have that flyer that was handed out, on the second page it will show you a map of our neighborhood that we're working in. We're working and targeting about 8,000 people in that community, working very closely with number 33 school as well as East High School, and ensuring that quality seats are created in the neighborhood. We are also not a direct service organization or a purpose-built community. How many of you have heard of purpose-built communities? Okay, so a few people in the audience. So Connected Communities is, in addition to, I'm so sorry, thank you. Why don't we just put that on silent? Never.
You're interrupting your own speech.
I am. I'm so sorry about that.
Just in case you had to leave, right?
Just in case, just in case. Vinny's the only one that's going to get a call from the governor, so I think I'll be good. So let's see, what was I saying? We're not a purpose-built community. So Connected Communities, in addition to working very directly on the ground with residents in the neighborhood, we are also charged with trying to become the first purpose-built community in the state of New York. So what is a purpose-built community? A purpose-built community is an organization, or a community rather, that addresses poverty in a very holistic way. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in just a little while. So we can go to the next slide. So if we look to our vision, you gotta hit it a couple times. Yep. Our vision and mission, our vision is that Emma and Beechwood are thriving neighborhoods with educational excellence, quality affordable housing, community wellness, and increased opportunity for all. And our mission, if we go to hit the next one, is to break the cycle of poverty and revitalize the Beechwood and Emma neighborhoods. We can go to the next slide. I'm sorry we don't have a clicker. You can click this a couple times. Yep, one more time. There we go. So we value shared leadership, and we act with empathy and compassion, and we build sustainability, by empowering residents. So Connected Communities is very, very purposeful about working with residents in the neighborhood. We do believe that if for whatever reason all of the resources go away and Connected Communities is not able to employ an executive director or any staffing, anything that we put in place should be sustainable. Residents should be able to continue the work in their neighborhoods with or without us. So we know that we have to come alongside of community members, neighborhood associations, businesses, residents right now, in a public-private venture to ensure that they're advocated for, that they have the resources that they need. But should we have to go away, that work should be able to continue. So we really value those things, and we're very intentional about that. We can go to the next slide. So this is how our work has been informed by residents, one-on-one. When I first started this position, and I've been in this position for only a year now, Connected Communities is that young, so we're younger than our mapping. I met with every single resident that wanted to meet with me. That was very important, to sit down, to have conversations, because no one wants to come into a community and say, this is what you all need to be successful. And this is what healthy living looks like for Emma residents or Beechwood residents. But instead, we ask the question, what would you like to see in your community? What are the assets that currently exist in your community that we can help you build on? And so that has been very important. But then also there's a ton of research to support the kind of work that we're doing. And that includes IBM's Smarter Cities team, the work that they did, obviously research from our MAPI's efforts. City of Rochester has done a ton of research around the issues that we're experiencing, and then also Finger Lakes Forward. So we have numerous funders. We are very fortunate that we have been, you can hit it again for our partners as well. Looks like that's gonna go one at a time. Just fun, 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 without a clicker, right? So we have been very fortunate to be funded by the Big Five and several other funders to start up an enterprise. This tells you that Rochester is in a very unique place because funders don't fund enterprises, all right? But they understood that in order to have this community quarterback whose sole responsibility was to be on the ground, working with the residents, connecting and convening resources, advocating for this neighborhood, that you needed a full-time staff person there on the ground to do that work. So we've been very fortunate that these individuals and these companies and organizations have said, yes, we want to support this. We would like to see the purpose-built model come to the city of Rochester in particular, and we'd like to see people lifted out of poverty, and we understand that that is a long-term initiative, that again, it will not take place overnight, but it also will need some money to fund those efforts. So we are very grateful to those funders. And then we, of course, have numerous partners because this, again, is not work that you can do in a vacuum. You cannot be siloed doing this kind of community work. It has to be very collaborative. So we have numerous neighborhood associations, residents, organizations, anchor institutions like the University of Rochester, St. John Fisher College, etc., are all represented on our board, as well as Beechwood Neighborhood Association members in addition to these private entities. We can go on to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about purpose-built. So purpose-built requires that we have, in order to be designated as a purpose-built community, we need to have a defined geographic location, which we do, Beechwood and Emma. We need to have a community quarterback, which has been established and hired an executive director. So that's Connected Communities. And then we need detailed plans for mixed income housing, cradle to career, education, and community wellness. We can go to the next slide. So our approach is to make sure that we're taking a collective impact, as I've talked about. We are geographically focused. And so why Beechwood and Emma? So you may have heard Dr. Brock say this before, that these neighborhoods have the hottest fire, but they're closest to water. So in other words, there's a high level of concentrated poverty in these neighborhoods. There's almost nothing you can do to revitalize a community without breaking up that concentrated poverty. But there's also significant assets in these neighborhoods as well. And so we need to begin building on those assets and figuring out what is already working for you in your community and how do we make that continue to work. So we're asset-based development, and we really believe in holistic revitalization. So we're not taking one thing first, like housing, or really just working with education. We are working across systems and across the spectrum to make sure that we're really capturing all of the support that people need in order to not only be lifted out of poverty, but to sustain themselves and not have to go back to long-term support. We can go to the next slide. So we teased out of those 3 priorities that purpose-built communities have, and we added economic development. So our focus is education, mixed income housing, wellness, and economic development. With education, I briefly mentioned this, us working very closely with number 33 school, which by the way is the largest elementary school in Monroe County. They have about 1,200 students that are enrolled there, and only 21% of the students who attend there actually live in the neighborhood. So we have a new focus on community schools and neighborhood schools, and how do we ensure, as we are revitalizing the neighborhood and pouring new resources into the neighborhood, that the kids who attend the school in the neighborhood and the families that live in the neighborhood can all benefit. If we have children who are going to our neighborhood school, but then they get on the bus and they go across town to Genesee Street after school, but then there's emergency housing or affordable housing, in that neighborhood, their families can't take advantage of it if we're really focused in on folks who live only in the neighborhood. So we're really working toward community schools. In addition to that, when you have community schools, you have neighborhood schools, you build and breed a sense of community, a sense of ownership, a sense of affiliation that our kids don't have because they're going all over the place. If you are a child and you live in a suburban community outside of Rochester, you know what high school you're going to. You probably have older siblings who've gone to that high school. You may wear the t-shirt, you know what the mascot is, you go to the basketball games and the football games. There's a sense of pride, a sense of camaraderie, maybe even some healthy rivalry between towns. Kids living in Rochester don't have that because they're all over the place. Likewise with East High School, only about 5% of their student population live in the neighborhood. And we do think that in order to build a sense of affiliation to the neighborhood and a sense of community, that neighborhood schools and community schools is the approach. And it's been something that our residents have said we really want to focus in on. Many of the 16 purpose-built communities across the country have implemented a charter model into their system, and our residents have been very advocate, have been very vocal about us focusing in on the two institutions that are right in our neighborhood. As far as mixed income housing is concerned, we have a partnership with Hillside and Home Leasing, and there is a brand new 72 unit home housing complex that's going up right on East Main Street, right across the street from RGRTA. And that mixed income community will have only 4 market rate apartments, and the remainder will be for affordable, and 16 of those units will be for folks with developmental disabilities. So again, Connected Communities will have a support staff that will be on site and will ensure that we recruit residents from within the neighborhood to take advantage of those brand new, affordable, and attractive housing community, but also that they're able to sustain there. That's, so that's sometimes the missing piece for our residents in this community. They can find something, but sustaining it long-term may be difficult. So we want to make sure we provide support for them. And then wellness. We're thinking about things like just the overall aesthetics of the neighborhood. Walkable, bikeable streets, tree-lined streets, things that really give people a sense of pride and a sense of attachment to their community. And then of course, economic development, creating jobs, working with businesses, particularly in the East Main Street area between Goodman and Culver Road. We're focused in, we just actually recently finished a business survey to determine what types of products and services residents want to see in that neighborhood, and we're recruiting businesses that will help to fulfill that need for residents in the neighborhood, and also working with organizations like the Market Driven Community Cooperative to bring in new businesses into our neighborhood, and then hiring people directly from the neighborhood. That way people can live, work, and play safely in their community. Go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm sure I'm over my 10 minutes. I told y'all I can talk. So this is my contact information. If anyone wants to reach me, we'll have a time for a question and answer. And then I'm always happy to give you my business card at the end of this if you would like to have a sit-down conversation to talk.